Hari Om. So welcome to today's class. We will start with prayers as always. I'm sharing the screen for the prayers. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam. Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Right. So till now we have seen what are all the fourfold. We have seen three of the fourfold qualification that is required for a student to inquire into the truth. So we have already seen what is Viveka, we have seen Vairagya, and we have also seen the Shad Sampatti, which is Shama, Dama, Uparama, Vairagya, Titiksha, and Shraddha, right? So we have seen, Shama, Dama, Uparama, and then we have Titiksha, Shraddha, and Samadhana. So these are the sixfold inner wealth that we saw in the last two classes. Today we have come to the last of the fourfold wealth, which is mumukshutvam. All right, so we will see what mumukshutvam is. Let me share the screen. So we have seen Shraddha, Samadhana, and the last of the fourfold inner wealth is mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam kim? Moksho me bhuyat iti ichcha. That is the desire, oh, let me be liberated. That strong desire for liberation is called mumukshutvam. Moksho me bhuyat iti ichcha. So we all have the desire for liberation from sorrow, but how intense that desire is, that determines the steps that we are going to take to liberate ourselves from the sorrow, isn't it? So here, Guruji says there are four types of mumukshutvam. So one is atimanda, that is like, it's barely there, very, very dull, wherein okay, if I get liberated, well and good. I don't have to do any extra effort to get liberated. If it happens, it happens. Otherwise, let me just carry on with my life as is, where the person is not taking any extra efforts to actively seek this liberation from sorrow. That is the atimanda mumukshutvam. See, one is not better than the other. Just because someone is not having the desire for liberation doesn't mean that they are wrong or anything. It is just that we all seek different things out of life. And, so people come to this stage whenever they are ready. All right. So that we have to remember, and we should apply it to ourselves. Again, these four types of mumukshutvam is for our own self check, like which stage of mumukshutvam I am in. Some days we feel very intense desire, like, to get out of this samsara chakra. And other days we are very happy. We even forget that we are in the samsara chakra, right? So this four types of mumukshutvam is for our own checking, not for checking on others. All right, we should always remember this. So first is very dull mumukshutvam, very dull desire, very like almost non-existent desire for liberation. The second thing is manda. It is dull. Like, we have people saying, we often hear this, Habba, once I finish all my responsibilities, then I will look into all this, then I will listen to Vedanta, then I will go attend discourses. Now I'm very busy, I have so many things to take care of. Or we even have people that say that, yes, I want to get liberated, but what to do? I have so many other commitments right now. I don't have the time. I don't have the, bandwidth to look into all this. So this is like they have the desire, but not very actively they are pursuing. They are like kind of postponing it at a future point of time. This is manda kind of mumukshutvam. And a third one is madhyama or mediocre, where they say, I need to get liberated as soon as possible. The sooner the better. So people start attending discourses, they start, practicing the fourfold qualifications. They start inquiring into, okay, what is this? Why am I here? All these questions, they start digging into this. This line of thought goes on in their mind, but it is not very intense yet. But they are like slowly getting there. And the final is the Tivra mumukshutvam, where as Swami Vivekananda says, right, like we have to desire liberation with such intensity that a man drowning in water seeks air, isn't it? That kind of intensity some people have, and eventually they are the ones who full on apply themselves into the path, and then fully dedicate their life into the quest of finding their own self. So that is Tivra mumukshutvam. And again, as I said, remember, it is for our own checklist, right? Most of the time, what happens is when we are going through sorrows, we feel, oh, life is tough, life is bad, I have to get out of this. All this thing we feel at that time, but when everything goes well in our life, then we just go with the flow. We don't really think about liberation from sorrow and so on and so forth. But I'm sure we all would have experienced that it all comes in a cycle, right? It's just like as if we are getting a brief respite from sorrows in life. That's how our life is most of the time, isn't it? Just when we're like, Habada, this thing is over, now we can relax for a little bit. And then once we get into the relaxation mode, the next problem is there waiting at our doorstep to come and, challenge us further. So that is how the nature of life is for everyone. It's not for you and me. Everyone faces their own challenges in their life. So the more aware we become of this cyclical nature of the ups and downs of life, cyclical nature of our own, the pointless work that we get to do most of the times, the pointless thoughts that we have most of the times, these patterns that we are so enslaved to, the more aware we become of it, the more intense our desire becomes to get out of this chakra. Like just like how one hamster is running in a wheel, right? We all are also running in a wheel. We are thinking, Appa, run, faster, and finally we'll be out of it. No, the faster we run, the faster the wheel is going to spin. So how do we get out of it? So that is what this mumukshutvam is. Another beautiful point that Guruji makes here is, for us to have a desire of liberation, we first have to be aware that we are bound. We first have to be aware that we have limitations, right? Only then we will even feel the desire to get liberated, isn't it? So, like for example, when we started our struggle for independence, when India started the struggle for independence, most of the Indians were not even aware that we were enslaved by the British, isn't it? We were not even aware that we were under the domination of the British. So first people had to be made aware that, hey, listen, you know what? You're ruled by a third party who has no say in what you're doing, but he is taking all your wealth and everything. So become aware you're being enslaved by the British. So come and fight for the freedom. First, that awareness had to be got into the masses, isn't it? Just like that, we should first become aware of our limitations, because actually we aren't limited. Actually, we aren't this small body, mind stuff at all. We are something so much more bigger than all these things. First, we have to be made aware of it. We have to be made that we are prisoners in our own flesh and blood and our mind. And we have to understand that first, and only then we can come out of it. So the desire for liberation, even if it is ati manda, that itself is a great step, because the biggest thing is conquered. We have become aware that there is something bigger than all this going on, isn't it? So that is another important point we have to keep in mind. So with this, we come to the end of the fourfold qualifications that Adi Shankaracharya had enlisted. Now we will go to the next verse. Etat sadhana chatushtayam tatsat tattva vivekasyadhikari no bhavanti. So with this, we have completed the sadhana chatushtayam, and the one who has this becomes an adhikari, a fit student, a fit person to inquire into the truth. All right. So does it mean that only we should inquire into the truth only after we have all these fourfold qualifications? Not necessarily like that. It has to happen parallelly. And acquiring these fourfold qualifications is a continuous process, right? We just keep improving, progressing from where we are, and there is no like final destination, final end goal where we are saying, I have all the fourfold qualifications perfectly in me, and there is no scope for improvement in my life. No, it is not like that. We just keep working on ourselves, because once we practically implement these fourfold qualifications in our life, we will find that automatically the mind becomes a lot more quieter, calmer, more perceptive, intuitive, and receptive to inquire into the nature of the truth. Because as I have said earlier, this is a very, 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 very subtle subject, and it is also extremely subjective, and it is not something that is like A plus B whole square, right? It is not a formula kind of a thing. It is something that we have to subjectively realize, no matter how much externally we are getting information about it. So for us to be able to understand completely, for us to be able to be ready to inquire into this truth, we have to ensure that our mind is at least trying to have these fourfold qualifications. And the practice and practice and practice, it never ends. Practice doesn't make us perfect. It makes us progress in what we are doing. All right, good. So with this, we get to the next verse. All right, so from here, the true fun starts. Next question. Tattvabodha kaha. So here we are. So remember, if you had noticed, in every verse, there is one new concept that is being introduced, and the next verse has the question asking what does that new term means, right? So in the last verse we saw etat sadhana tatsat tattva vivekasya adhikarino bhavanti. So here tattva vivekasya adhikarino, that tattva viveka term is being introduced in the last verse. So now we are going to see what does that mean here. Okay. So tattva vivekaha kaha. Atma satyam tad anyam sarvam mityeti. Atma alone is real. Everything else is unreal. Everything other than the Atma is unreal. This is the Tattva Vivekam, this inquiry, this discrimination, this ability to distinguish between the Atma and Anatma, that is everything else other than Atma, is called Tattva Viveka. So here the new term that is being introduced is Atma, isn't it? Next verse will have what is Atma, that will come in the next verse. But first we will see a little bit more in detail this verse, all right? So Atma Satyam Tadanyam Sarvam Mityeti, all right. So before we see what Atma is, which is going to be explained in detail in the coming verse, we will take the two other words, which is Satyam and Mithyam. All right. So what is Satyam? Satyam, we all know. Satyam is truth, or that which is real. What do we say is real? Something that holds good in all three periods of time. Something that exists in all three periods of time, that is past, present, and future. That alone is Satyam. So we already know that nothing exists in all three periods of time, isn't it? The entire universe, everything in the universe, nothing exists in all three periods of time. The stars that were there billions of years ago no longer exist. The dinosaurs that were there so many millions of years ago no longer exist. Our grandparents, great-grandparents that were there hundreds or even few years ago, they may not be here with us anymore. And we ourselves may not be there in another 50, 60 years. So in the way the world is going, God knows how long we are going to survive, or how long this body is going to survive, isn't it? So the thing that exists in all three periods of time, that is Satyam, and everything else is Mithyam. All right. So Mithya is different from Asat. Okay. It is not untruth. It is unreal. There is a difference between these two terms, and we have to understand that clearly, because what we are experiencing is mithya, not asat. Asat means non-existent. It is never there. For example, the sibling of the only child. Can there be a sibling of an only child? Blood sibling of an only child? Not possible. No, only child means only child. They don't have any other brothers or sisters, elder brother, elder sister, younger sister. They don't have anybody. That's why they are the only child. So can there ever exist a sibling of an only child? Not possible, is it? The sibling of the only child is Asat. It's never existed. Whereas mithya is something that we experience, something that is existing, but it keeps changing. It is unreal. Can you understand the difference between the two? Asat and mithya. Satya, we are very clear, that which exists in all three periods of time, that is satyam. All right. Asat is that which has never existed. All right. And mithya is something that is existing or existed or will exist. And it is experienced also, but it is constantly changing. That is called mithya. All right. So everything that we experience comes under this category, including our own body, including the world that we live in, the birds, the trees, the sun, the moon, the stars, the rivers, the ocean, everything, isn't it? Everything is something that is experienced, that is existing, but it is not existing in all three periods of time. It keeps constantly changing. All right. So that is called mithya. All right. So here Guruji makes a very beautiful point. Okay. So he says, Sri Buddha realized in meditation that the solid looking body is only energy in motion, as is every object in the world. For him, it was not just an intellectual concept as viewed by the scientist, but an actual experience. So we all know that everything is energy. We all know this by now, isn't it? It's all energy in motion, energy with different states of vibration. The lower the vibration, the more solid the matter. The higher the vibration, it becomes subtler and subtler. We all know this because that is the fundamental of physics, isn't it? And after a point, there is no distinction between energy and matter at all. The line gets blurred, isn't it? We all know this basics of physics, quantum physics. But have we experienced it in person? Have we experienced that this energy is, this body is nothing but energy? Maybe few of you would have. I have not yet completely experienced it. But Guruji says, Buddha experienced this in meditation. All right. And it was an actual experience for him. So he understood Sri Buddha understood during meditation that this body is also mithya. Intellectually, we may nod our head and say, yeah, this body was not there in the past. It will not be there in the future. It is now here. So this body is mithya. But actually what we are experiencing this body as our truth, isn't it? So that subjective experience is what is important over here. So how do we get to know the difference between what is sat and what is mithya in our lives? The problem is the sat substance and the mithya substance, they live so closely together that it is very difficult to distinguish between the two. All right. So that is what we are going to see in the next verses. So this is a very famous Vedantic technique called negation of superimposition, wherein we are going to peel away the layers one by one and see what is left behind, saying this is not this, neti days, not this, not this, not this. So what is left behind is the truth. That is what we are going to see in the next verses. But before that, let us think here for a moment. Okay. We all know that I experience this world. We all know that I am experiencing this world. I am experiencing physical sensations through my body, heat, cold, the wind blowing, tasty food, bland food, pain, disease, discomfort. All this we are experiencing at a physical level. Similarly, at a mental level also, we undergo so many experiences, right? We experience joy, we experience sorrow, anger, and so many other emotions we experience. Similarly, at an intellectual level also, we experience so many things. We are able to differentiate, distinguish, we are able to make decisions, we are able to think rationally, logically. All these things also we experience. The experiences that we gather is very vast, it's very varied, and it is coming into us through so many different inputs. But the experiencer is the same. As a child, I would have experienced going to school. At that time, my body would have been small. I would have had probably a little more hair. All right, I would have been a lot more energetic, definitely, isn't it? As a child, I have experienced this. As a mother, I am experiencing the tantrums of my child. I am experiencing the joys that a child brings into my life. And my body is different now. And definitely, as I age, if I get to live that long, I'm going to experience the pains of old age, right? The body becoming weaker, the senses becoming dull. All this I'm going to experience through my body. The experiences are differing. The body through which I am experiencing all these experiences is also going to change, but the experiencer remains the same. All right? Clear? Similarly, in the mental state also, the experiencer experiences joy. I say, I am happy, I am sad, I am angry. But it is not I am feeling sad, I am feeling happy, I'm feeling angry. So again, all these feelings are experienced by the experiencer, even though the experiences keep changing, and the state of mind, the mental faculty, the subtle body through which I'm experiencing this is also constantly changing. All right? This distinction is clear. It is something that we all experience, isn't it? Yeah. So, how we are going to arrive to understand who this experiencer is and what all this experiencer is not. We can't directly define the experiencer. It is not possible. You will see why it is not possible as we go further. But we can say what all this experiencer is not. Because I have this concept of satya and mithya, and I know satya is something that is going to remain constant across all 3 periods of time, or something that is going to exist in all 3 periods of time, and mithya is something that is going to exist and also subject to experience, but it is going to constantly keep changing. All right. So within us, so everything in Vedanta, everything starts with us only, okay? Because we have to relate and understand this concept. So within us, the body is changing, the mind is changing, the intellect also functions with different capabilities at different points of time. All right, but our identification is always with these 3. If I say, who is Aruna? What will be the description that people will give? They are not going to say, oh, Aruna is the experiencer who is experiencing this world through the body. No, what are they going to say? Aruna is a woman from the body point of view. Probably they'll say she's 5 feet 5 inches tall. She's weighing so and so, a little bit on the heavier side, probably they'll say. All right, so that is what they're going to talk about me, or that's how I myself may talk about me from a physical perspective. And they may also say Aruna is a wife of so-and-so, Aruna is the daughter of so-and-so, Aruna is the mother of so-and-so. isn't it? They may talk about me. My identity is linked with respect to the relations around me. And they may also say, or I may also say, Aruna is a very even-tempered person, though my mother will not agree with this, probably. So they will say she's a yoga teacher. She also works with some NGOs. So they may say this with respect to my profession. And that's how we identify ourselves also, right? We mostly tie our worth to what we do and what we are. Isn't it? That's how we introduce ourselves. We don't go about saying, I am the experiencer experiencing. No, we don't say. We just say, hi, I'm Aruna. I teach yoga. I also work for an NGO. That's how I introduce myself. Or I say, hi, I am Radhika's mother. That's how I introduce myself too. So why I'm saying all this is the identity of the experiencer so closely tied with the mithya stuff. That which is going to change, that which is always changing, is very closely identified. So what we are going to do is we are going to do the negation here. We are slowly going to peel away, saying, I am not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not this intellect. Slowly we are going to create a gap between the experiencer and other identities the experiencer is having already. So this is what we are going to see in the next verses. And from here, it's going to get a little more technical. We may have to reflect on this over and over again for it to make sense to us. All right. So any doubts thus far? Was it clear? Did I make sense to you today? Okay, because nobody is asking any questions, I am assuming that I made sense. All right, so from the next class, it's going to get more and more intense. We really have to. When we listen, we feel, oh, yes, I understand. But then afterwards, when we reflect, so many doubts will start coming up within us. All right, and we have to think through it and find out the answers for it. All right. So it's going to be like a little bit of a mental gymnastics. So that's why the mind had to be ready with all these fourfold qualifications. But we are always work in progress. So that's absolutely fine. So I'll see you all on next Friday, 5:30 p.m. IST. All right. So we'll finish the class with our closing prayers. Let me share the screen. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.